981. You can also tweet at smooth981. And don't forget, we're also streaming live on our YouTube channel, so you can catch the live stream and you can even post a comment on there. It's smooth981, youtube.com/smooth981. The analyst is in. Good morning, Chibuzor, and welcome.
Good morning, Zibby.
Yay, with a few extra Y's at the end.
Yeah, cycle from
Right. Okay, let's start off with a headline coming from Vanguard. FG opt for duty-free imports of rice, wheat, beans, others.
So the federal government reportedly has opted or is planning to suspend duties, tariffs, and taxes on some essential food items that are imported to the land and the sea borders. This story is coming from the Vanguard, and they said the decision was to help bring down the cost of food prices and basically help Nigerians get past the current pain of trying to access their basic food items. Yeah, help Nigerians access their basic food items now. If you've for anybody who's been paying attention, or everybody who's been paying attention to the inflation prices since the start of the year, since last year actually, a major component of the inflation price or the inflation rate, the current inflation rate across the various states is food inflation, which is obviously benchmarked to basket of basic essentials. And in particular states as high as 49% or 49, 44%, and it ranges in the 40s to 30s across the country. This is not just about the major cities, this is even about some of the areas that we consider rural or semi-rural, or semi-urban, sorry. And so it's a bit concerning, and this is for most Nigerians, we spend a lot of our income on feeding. So obviously, when price of food goes up, obviously it impacts our spending power. It obviously jacks up inflation and obviously leads Nigerians to be a bit more, you know, um, all Nigerians to be a lot more worried because you basically are spending, you have very little disposable, if any disposable income at all. So that's what we have. What's happening here? What the government is supposedly trying to do is by removing all the tariffs and the duties and tariffs on this food or these items you'll be able to they're able to come into the country at a cheaper rate, making it more accessible and more affordable for most Nigerians. So, consequently to this new information breaking out, the Nigerian Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture and Center for Promotion of that's NASIMA, and also the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprises, PPE. They've lauded the government's decision, saying that it will have a positive impact on inflation. So basically, the listed food items include maize, wheat, sorry, what's my host? All right. And carbs, and know something. Will enjoy a 150-day duty-free import window. So basically, that's what's going to happen. Obviously, the food inflation rate across the entire country is 40.66% at the moment. So basically, that's what the government is trying to do. They're trying to open up the borders to allow these things to come in at cheaper, more affordable rates so that it drops the prices of, helps makes this essentials more affordable in the markets. So on the surface, obviously, this is well, on the surface and at this moment, this is actually a good plan. But this is a good plan only in the short to medium term. For Nigeria, we basically need to look at ourselves and ask ourselves what you have to ask ourselves specific questions and plan a bit more strategically. I do know the government has tried to push up a lot in encouraging people to go back and have gardens in their homes. Some of the state governors have picked up the challenge and are trying to drive farming in their states. The garden homes is also a bigger part of a bigger strategic problem because if you come to some of the urban areas, for instance, in my current place is like I think it was AB yesterday was pointing out that a lot of the buildings are not even planned to allow spaces for growth. A lot of people come out here and say you can plant in sacks, you can plant in bags. I can tell you that my former landlord, if you try to plant anything in his compound, come down on you heavy. And you don't even, you have some people who live in compounds that there's even no space at all to even put anything outside. Their outside is the outside of the compound. So we do need to look at how we do our urban planning to ensure at least we have a bit more green spaces. And we plan properly to make good use of the space and allow for good. There are countries, I think Singapore allows you to build up to for I think for the high rises, there has to be some level of greenery and stuff like that. But that's likely to ensure that CO2, the entire environmental impact. But you know, even if everybody's going at their homestead, that's enough to provide theoretically, which is what the government is trying to push. That might only be enough to provide for those people who are there. The majority of Nigerians might not have the opportunity. What we need to do is be able to look at long term. How do we get the prices of foodstuffs still put stuff down? How do they become more affordable? How do they get quickly to the market? And that's a lot bigger strategic question that ranges from ensuring security as an actual security, not just food security, ensuring farmers can go back to their farms, ensuring that they can take those products out of the farms to points of distribution, points of storage. Transportation is good, infrastructure to make sure that they're transported good, you know, the guys who are trying to transport these things from the farms down to the cities or the urban areas or whatever they be consumed do not have to incur additional costs for them to not have to have larger overheads to be able to pass on to the final consumers. We need to actually look at this strategically and say, how do we solve this puzzle? How do we solve this problem from all points? But that is more of a long-term, medium to long-term plan. But at the moment, hey, anything that brings down price of food in the market and can help nudge the inflation prices down a bit lower is appreciated, but should be appreciated by everybody. But like I said, there is a bigger challenge that we need to focus on down the line.
All right, next headline comes from The Nation. Nigeria, a 2.6 billion naira investigation. EFCC quizzes Ethiopian Airlines CEO.
So the background of this is that towards the end of the last regime, or some point during the last regime, there was the concept of the story of Nigeria having the national car being floated around. And the minister for aviation then, Haji Sirika, this came about this plan of Nigeria Air. And I think towards the last days of the President Muhammad Buhari's tenure, they actually launched what was supposed to be the flagship of that airline. So months later, coming into the new regime, the current minister for aviation has come out and said, you know what, this is a no-no. Basically, scrap the plan. The former minister is under investigation. I think the case is in court. I think his daughter also has been roped into this investigation, and some other interested people. And the investigation is taking various pieces. According to the current minister, he said that there was really nothing. That what was shown was basically a farce. That and it came to light that part of what was proposed to Nigeria, was shown to Nigeria was, I think, about 49. It was basically supposed to be a partnership between Nigeria, some Nigerian investors, Ethiopian Airlines. Let me check for the specific percentage. I think about 49% was owned by Ethiopian Airlines. The federal government owned 5%. And the consortium of 3 Nigerian investors owned 46%. We don't know who the 3 Nigerian investors are at the moment, but that was the breakdown of the percentage. So what has happened here is that at some point, and the EFCC has not shared that with us, the EFCC had a discussion with the CEO of Ethiopian Airlines, Mesfin Tassio, and he's also claimed that the Ministry of Aviation is still owing Ethiopian Airlines over $211,000 based on terms of the agreement or the pact that was signed between the Aviation Ministry and Ethiopian Airlines as a partner. He also mentioned during his discussions with the EFCC, according that that because at some point Ethiopian Airlines actually pulled out of the agreement, which is the major cause for the failure of the project, was that Ethiopian Airlines pulled out because the project, because of the way the project was being managed by the ministry, so they pulled out. So currently, we do know that what we know is that the EFCC is leading an investigation into the entire incident. About 2.6 billion, sorry, 2.6 billion Nigerians. I think the amount should sink down with all Nigerians about how much we lose to this kind of practices. Um, and while the investigation is still in court, what we have is that we've invested this money and we're not going to get it back. And there's still an outstanding payment that needs to be made, according to Ethiopian Airlines. So you can either look at it from two ways, either look at it from the point of corruption and fraud, or you can look at it from the point where you had an agreement to deliver to, and we've not I wanted to, I'm almost tempted to say in our usual manner, failed to meet the terms of that arrangement. So we've basically flushed 2.6 billion down the toilets as a country. So yeah,
Yes.
so I think the other thing that caught my ear in this story when I was looking through the story was that and this goes back to when the current minister said he suspended that the project was suspended. He actually said, oh, it was never Nigerian Air. It was only painted Nigerian Air that Ethiopian Airlines were allowed to fly our flag. Why we allowing why we don't are we not allowing our local people to fly our flag? Why must they not fly our flag? And for me, I think it just and obviously I know that the minister is a lawyer by training, and that's how he made his name, and that's what he is. Um, I think if you look at the entire breakdown of what has been coming, the federal government has only brought in 5%. We have 46% by other Nigerians. I'm not sure about how much equity was put on the table, but these agreements can always be structured to ensure that Nigerians, in this end, Nigerians have come in as the majority, have come in as the majority contributors or majority owners of this particular partnership. I think one thing that we need to put in our mind in Nigeria is that it's better to have 50% of something that works than 100% of something that will not work. And while we want to be all Nigerian and we want to be all patriotic and want to be all proud and say it's Nigerian, the Ethiopian Airlines have had a good record in running an airline, which is, I think I know the last time I checked, at least it's over 50 years or more, the Marina Airline. So the fact that they're African or from another country, we still have a lot to learn from them. So that's why I put that case down. So let's see what the EFCC does with this. But at the moment, we have the small issue of $211,000 to pay up to Ethiopian Airlines, and we'll see how they try and get it out of this.
All right, let's look at some of the messages coming through. This one is from Adirami. He says, we just need a critical mass of people to participate in the home gardening initiative, not necessarily every home. Lagos might be a bit problematic, but other states are primed for the initiative.
Okay, I'm not going, yeah. Let's keep that.
Ayorinde says, removing the taxes on various food items is good, but it's not enough. They have to follow through with the supply chain to ensure artificial price hikes do not occur. Another message coming through from Adegboyega, he says, I think the federal government is taking a bold step by trying to at least bring relief by lifting strangulated tariffs on rice, corn, maize, beans, etc. to the country. This will checkmate the excess extortion of Foods Association in Nigeria that fix prices and hike prices. You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Do stay with us. We'll take more headlines when we return.
I think a lot of people don't understand the challenges in the farmers.
Sorry?
I think a lot of people don't understand the challenges that's happening. So I sell tomatoes, right? The cost of every other thing I buy in the market. I sell only tomatoes. Cost of every other thing I consume or use, either my transport services, my health services has gone up.
Right.
My only source of income is selling tomatoes. So what do? I hack my price.
Yeah.
To meet my other cost. Thing that's happened in real estate. So nobody's talking about real estate.
It
Nobody's
is
talking about
mental.
Everybody just wakes up in the morning and says, you know what? Prices are going up because, if I'm going to fly out, because you have landlords who are living in the US and obviously dollars has changed. I want to collect $1,000 for my property.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever the dollar is, that's what I want for this one. It doesn't care. So when we look at it like, oh, how much it's not a CSR.
You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. It's Zibby here. My analyst this morning is Chibuzor. We're streaming live on YouTube. You can catch the live stream. You can post a comment on there. And you can also send messages through via WhatsApp 0809 440 9817 46. Next headline comes from Punch. 423 billion naira theft. Court hears El Rufai suit against Kaduna Assembly July 17th.
Okay. Still on legal cases or cases currently in court. Um, Basically, what has happened here is that the Kaduna House of Assembly set up an ad hoc panel and to investigate happenings that basically the stewardship and issues that happened under the former governor of Kaduna State tenure, Nasir El-Rufai. And at the end of the ad hoc committee's hearing, they were basically investigating finances, loans, contracts awarded under for El-Rufai, and they indicted the ex-governor on the 5th of June and some of his appointees, and they said they siphoned about 423 billion state funds. This came on the back of the new state governor claiming that he inherited the lean treasury and he had little sources of funds to, continue with projects. So, in response to that, triggered by the governor, the assembly set up this 30-man panel, and the outcome of that panel is he basically indicting the former governor's aides and other appointees. Now, what former governor has done is that the former governor has now gone to court to go and challenge it. And one of the things one of the basis of his challenge is that he said he was not invited to defend himself during the probe, during the process of the probe, and he's asking the court to set it aside, the outcome aside. I I do have my concerns with some of these things. I do think that we don't we I so what we have typically, and I always find it challenging, is that we have a situation where we are if I want to go back, I think the root of this is also about goes back to what exactly do we have as a political system? What are our party systems? Our parties have become basically special purpose vehicles for getting people to power. There is little, I know a lot of people come from my head for this. There are little ideologies, little concepts of ideology or concepts of this is what we want to offer the populace as a party, separate from what the next party offers in most situations. We have people who are there because of this party can win in the state. So we do see a lot of this kind of institutions when one person goes out, the other person jumps immediately and says, comes in and declares, oh, I don't have any cash. Whether true or right or wrong. And next thing you have a review into the first person's tenure. And that takes up a lot of time. Instead of us forging ahead with development and progress, we do a lot of these things. And I'm not saying that these things are wrong in themselves because we do need to have a system that works to keep people accountable at all points. But the question I ask myself is that do we have to wait for the 8-year tenure of a governor, well, 4-year tenure, does it twice? And we do have to wait for the end of that government and a new set of people coming for these things to happen, for these investigations to happen rightly or wrongly. There should be systems that hold these people to account that are independent of the political system. So I think there's a lot of things that we need to ask ourselves as Nigerians. How do we hold people to order when they're in power? But we have this, and we have this. It is what it is. We have the situation in the hand. Governor El-Rufai, former Governor El-Rufai, is asking that the court should squash the report of the assembly. On one hand, he's gone to court He's gone to court, and I think the court has fixed July 17th to speak on that matter. He's asking the court to declare the report of the committee null and void. And that's the attorney for the state assembly said he was in the process of filing an objection to the motion, and we'll see where this case goes to. While everybody goes to court and hunkers about and tries to push their cases, the current government is complaining about its high debt profile, and obviously the message he's pushing out forward is that, hey, you know what, I have a lot of this debt. I have a debt burden of 587 million, 85 billion, and 115 contractual liabilities inherited from the previous government. So when he's not able to deliver most of the things he claims he wants to deliver, just expect him to roll this out as the reasons why. We look forward and we'll keep an eye on what is happening in State and hope for the sake of the people of Kaduna State and every other state in the country that we get past all these issues and actually jump towards proper development.
All right, thank you, Chibuzor. Let's move on to the next headline, and this comes from Daily Post. EFCC opposes Emefiele's quest for overseas medical trip.
Um, so this is in a country that has some pride in itself. This entire headline would be insulting to its people. But Nigerians, we're a special breed. We love when we look at the country and what we've created, many of us have chosen classism to be able to separate ourselves from those who have not. And one of the signs of shame that we have is our ability to be able to jump out at every opportunity for medical attention abroad. And I'm not speaking to the fact that it's a wrong thing to do, but because the reality is that in a lot of instances we do lack some of these medical facilities that are required to look at to treat some of these issues that we need to be treated to and handled by. But seems to be a familiar cry by anybody who's in the arms of the security agencies or under custody. At some point, the lawyers are going to throw out, the need for medical treatment, especially abroad, or to see their lawyer, and the lawyers will obviously say he needs to go abroad for his medical treatment. I do hope one day we'll get past it, and I think it should start from the top. I always said it from the top, and I will say it from the presidency. We need to set the example. The example needs to be set where we at least have at least one or two top-notch medical facilities that anybody who has at least has the means to be able to go there will go there locally, and we don't have to be flying people abroad whenever they need treatment. So at least the FCC will be able to escort the person down to his local hospital, stand by the bedside, allow him to be treated, and wheeled back to wherever he is. That's given that the processes that have gotten him to custody are, within the ambits of the law to start. So basically, here the former governor of the CBN is asking for the release of his passport to enable him make an overseas medical trip. Obviously, the FCC spokesman has revealed this on his statement on Monday. This is not the first request by it. They said said Monday's affidavit by the defense and the counter affidavit by prosecution, which is the FCC in this case, was in furtherance of the ones made earlier on the matter on the 25th of June. The prosecuting counsel has told the court that there was no medical report before the court showing that the ex-CBN governor was plagued by any ailments, and there was no proof to show that he couldn't be treated in Nigeria. And that he also informed the court that he had deposited his passport as part of his bail conditions. So, it's at the end of the day, the lawyers need to prove that, he has some medical treatment that needs him to go out of the country. But like I said, I started with my plea. I do hope at some point we don't have these excuses to have to jump out of the country. A lot of the forex demands we have in the country actually are tied to, people seeking for forex to go abroad for treatment. And while I'm not saying Nigeria should be an utopia, but some things should be available. Then we can look at the cost when we make them available, but they should be available.
All right, from Vanguard, minimum wage. Labour urges NAS to end slave wage.
So NLC is asking the National Assembly to work with the Tripartite Committee on the new minimum wage to establish mechanisms for regular reviews of the wage levels and ensure that they keep costs with the rate of inflation and cost of living. So this call was made by the NLC president, and they were at a national retreat where they talked about labor reforms and the request for a living wage in Nigeria, focused on legislative interventions organized by the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies in Abuja. So it's basically urging the lawmakers to review and update labor laws to reflect this reality. Basically, what does this boil down to? We do know that the NLC is currently, I don't know if they're still in discussions or they're partly. We really don't know what the state is. So we'll probably in the next time when NLC reminds us that they'll probably go on strike again at some point when they're in the mood. but we do know that the NLC is in some form of engagement with the federal government in terms of reviewing the current wage structure um, to be able to get what they could term a living wage or at least an improved minimum wage. And both themselves and the federal government are on two sides of the man. So the federal government is proposing a particular value. The NLC is asking for a value that is at least 3 or 4 times more than what the federal government is looking at in the first place, even more than that. So there's always obviously a big gap. And what Labour is asking for is that the National Assembly should take responsibility of reviewing wages, at least the wage structure, at the regular time too, so that we to be able to reflect what the prevailing inflationary rates or cost of living in the country are. It's a fair demand on one side, but I think what and this has always been my position with labor unions, that labor unions should be a bit more involved in solving the root problem. The root problem is not the change in wages, although there needs to be some mechanism on the table, which is fair. So which is what is asking the NAS to do. But what we should be looking at, how does what would the NLC play in holding the government more accountable? And I'm not talking about just after the elections or having strikes before the elections. How do we drive the progress of the country? I do not see enough of engagements by the NLC. Maybe I don't know of it, but times I do not see enough of it. Even in the workplaces, where we even look at the wage laws, the work Nigerian workers are not just the major issue. Wages and salaries are not the only issues of Nigerian workers or people who are members of labor unions, because a lot of people are members of labor unions and they have rights which are not being defended in the workplace. We have standards of the workplace standards that which are not being kept to by employers. We have people who are even still being offered bare minimum, even in some cases. The question is how even the entire idea of people enforcing the minimum wages are they being enforced? Do people are people to come to labor unions for recourse? What roles are the labor unions playing in terms of ensuring that workers have a safe workplace to work in outside of wages? Those are other questions I ask from the labor union that we need to look at it and say, how do we strategically engage a lot more than what we're doing at the moment? Well, yes, they've made a valid claim and they've made a valid request, and we do hope that NAS also sits to it and sees how did they put this framework how do they put this framework on the ground? How do all the related parties engage with the federal government? Because even if NAS first put something on the table, the executive has to assent to it. So there needs to be communication on all three parts of the government, at least to make this work. And let's not forget that, the wages are not going to be paid by the federal government. There are other independent units of government that need to be able to afford to pay these things. And we spoke earlier about food inflation. In a lot of states outside of Lagos, for instance, food inflation numbers hit close to 50%. And these are not, your major city centers. So, we need to look at this.
All right. Deji says, will there be a day in this country and our headlines that we're not going to hear billions of naira stolen? The truth is the money can't be recovered. It's gone. Fabian from Ekwe says, we always have been talking about accountability, but no one is ever held accountable and punished as a deterrent. Till this occurs, nothing will change. I beg to disagree, as there are medical facilities available to take care of Mr. Emefiele. Money is continuously budgeted for some facilities, but again, there's little or no accountability on how such funds are used. Ajayi says, the issue of former Governor El Rufai and the Kaduna State government is just another of the rascalities by our political actors in their fight for superiority. Dakbo says, just like Chibuzor said, indeed, we Nigerians are a special breed. The simple truth of the matter is that Godwin Emefiele is a financial island and has access to too much money in foreign currency. And if the EFCC release him to go for treatment, it's possible he could say goodbye and good riddance to Nigeria. And Ibrahim Zakari says, I'm of the opinion that the government removal of tariff on some food items undermines the underlying factor of the exchange rate of our currency. This is another political somersault. Provide security for farmers to go back to the farm, and there would be a food surplus. Our tomatoes also imported into the country, yet they are expensive. It's all about demand and supply. That is all the time that we have for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your messages. And of course, special thanks to you, Chibuzor, our analyst, for being with us on the show.
It's been my pleasure once again. Thank you.
Just Dairy Fast, there's a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.
Mm. Let's go.